I'm Dr. Susan Eirich, and welcome to this conservation conversation. These conversations are designed to contemplate our collective journey together and how best we can find and then maintain our individual paths. The ultimate goal is action arising from a shift in perception that all life is sacred, and creating a community of practice that grows and supports each other through our actions. We're delighted you're here. I think I'll just give a quick background about Linda for those of you who might not know her. It's Dr. Linda Bender. She's a wildlife veterinarian with incredible experience around the world, having developed all kinds of protocols where there weren't any for dealing with wildlife in the middle of nowhere with no support. She's an enormous activist. She's a wildlife vet with a spiritual and intuitive component. She says something that I find is fascinating, which is she'll ask the animal if it wants to live. She'll ask the animal what it wants. She won't just look at the bloods. She's a really good scientist. She loves science, but she also will look at the animal and use her intuition and also her spiritual connection, which is a really rare combination. And she's an activist for animals. And she was intuitive since a little girl in terms of connecting with animals. She's written a beautiful book called Animal Wisdom, if any of you are interested in reading that. And that's an introduction to her. I'm assuming I will probably hear from her by phone if she can't get on. But I guess I will just get started with what we're going to talk about and bring her in whenever she gets here. So Chelsea and I and Linda were talking about what we should discuss tonight. When she gets on, we can certainly hear stories from her as well. But times are getting critical in terms of our life on Earth here, and particularly with respect to climate change. And one of the things I really wanted these conversations to do was to find a way to support one another so that we don't give in to despair, and so that we find our way to do what we can do. If it helps or not doesn't even matter. What matters is that we put out the energy into the earth and the universe of trying to help, and that we, for our own sakes, do what we feel we can do. You probably are all familiar with the demonstrations we just had recently around the world by youth. Started by a 15-year-old Asperger's depressed school child. And the fact that she, from her one initial statement of sitting outside school on Fridays, refusing to go in as a protest, we now have worldwide movement of students, separate from their parents. One little depressed Asperger's girl started this. She's been nominated for the Nobel Prize, actually. So if she can do it, we can do it. One of the things that's a bit difficult for us is, as adults, we already have commitments. We don't have the same freedom as that youth might have. But I think it's time for us to insist on having that freedom to begin to take action. Hi, Linda.
Hi.
I just gave a beautiful introduction. I thought it was beautiful about who you are and what you do.
Yeah.
And then I was just talking about what you and I and Chelsea had originally discussed about the idea of climate change can bring us to our knees. The suffering of the animals because of climate change can bring us to our knees. And what can we do about it? How important it is for us to support one another. How important it is for us not to give in to despair, that we can't afford it. What about Greta Thunberg, the the student, the Swedish student who started a worldwide youth movement that demonstrated all over the world on Friday. And if one little 15-year-old girl can do it, what might we do if we get locked as we get older into our commitments and our careers, but it's time for us to unlock. So I was just beginning to discuss that in the context, because it's Earthfire and you, in the context of the utter devastation that's happening to animals. What can we do to help animals in the light of the utter devastation from both climate change and population growth and people wanting 3 houses instead of 1? What can we do? I was at a conference actually with Linda last year, and one of the things that became so clear to me, and I think is something that perhaps we can all begin to try to help shift the attitude on, that land is not a commodity. You don't go and buy a piece of land as if it's nothing and decide to dig it up, kill all the living stuff that's already in the soil, like millions and billions of beings, put on a large house, and never even think about the fact that the land itself might have something to say. But we might want to instead start to begin to either make a really minimal impact or build with the land and make it even richer. So the beginning of a shift in seeing that land is not a thing. And it's just because it's there doesn't mean it's free for us to take and do whatever we want. A cultural shift that other beings have a right to that land too could make a profound difference. How can we help with that locally, the writing, etc.? So, Linda, I know that one of your passions and one of your beautiful things you talk about is how you can't give in to despair. Some of the terrible things you've seen, and you as an extremely sensitive being and an intuitive and feeling the pain of the others, and yet you still go on. You've not died of cancer from the horror of it all. You're actually healthy and managing and strong. So I just thought you might want to be able to share something like that.
Such beautiful words, Susan. The first thing I would like to say is how much we need each other in this journey. And I would like to say how much you, Susan, inspire me. I know we had a phone conversation the other day, and we were talking about, I was telling you a story of what I was just going through. And if I could share that, just dive right in. As many years as I have been on this path, as many years as I've been helping, many years as I've been in the trenches, helping and healing and advocating for animals, I still fall into despair, as I did when I was reading a book written by a friend, and it's a book called The Wilding, and it's a very inspiring book, because this is an example of people who are doing exactly what you were talking about, starting from where they are, doing what they can, and they, quote, rewilded thousands of acres in this one area of England. And there was a section of the book that I was reading, and as you know, I am a lover of birds. They sing to my soul. And may I just read this one little passage? I was reading about turtle doves. Now, we have variations, of course, of doves in this country, but it doesn't matter. It's in England. And what I read was this. For most people our age, born in the 60s, who have grown up in the countryside, turtle doves are the sound of summer. Their companionable crooning is lodged forever somewhere deep in my subconscious. But this nostalgia, I realize, is lost to generations younger than ours. In the 60s, there were estimated 250,000 turtle doves in Britain. Today, there are fewer than 5,000. At the present rate of decline, by 2050, there could be fewer than 50 pairs. And from there, it would be a hair's breadth to extinction as a breeding species in Britain. Now at Christmas, when we sing the gifts of my true love give to me, few carolers have ever heard a turtle dove, let alone seen one. The significance of that name, I wonder if people know. Turtle dove has nothing to do with a reptile. It has to do with the beautiful yet mournful turring of the song of the turtle. It's the stuff of Shakespeare, Chaucer, and vanishing they are into the kingdom of phoenixes and unicorns. And as the song and the sound of birds are embedded into my soul as a young girl, I took these words and they just pulled me into that despair that nothing could coax me out of. And I literally fell to the ground and in a fetal position, cried and cried and cried and cried. But what I knew as I was experiencing that devastation, and we can see and read and feel these things every day in this insane world. What I knew in my heart and my soul was that even though I was going through this time of despair, I knew that even though I was mired in it, I could see beyond. I knew it would pass. I knew I could see beyond, and this too would leave me. And once again, from that deepest, darkest point, I would rise and again know that my courage would reign and I would be stronger yet. And why I believe that we need a depth of spiritual practice to continue on in this work and live in this world and do good things and be courageous as you are asking us all to be and do. We need that. We need that inner strength. Otherwise, we let the darkness win. And who was it that said, fools multiply when wise men are silent? We need the courage to stand up, looking beyond what we see happening, the devastation, the insanity, and continue and do our work. And we all have a mission, every one of us. You know, it's the blessing and the curse. That blessing is our gift that we have to give to the world. And those of us who love animals, everything we do every day is making a difference. We just, as Jane Goodall says, we have to decide what kind of difference we're going to make. And so even me, even Linda, who's been in the trenches for so many years, I'm not above falling on my knees in despair. The difference is the ability to rise up and carry on. And as His Holiness the Dalai Lama said, never, ever, ever give up. Never, no matter what is going on in the world, never give up.
Among other things, we don't know what's going to happen if we don't give up.
That's right. That's right. You know, my lifelong relationship with animals has taught me they're intelligent, emotional beings capable of great compassion and love. You know, animals are in that state of consciousness that's one with nature, connected to all life, closer to God. They graciously offer that divinely bestowed wisdom to us. We need to open our hearts and minds. And then we exist, we live every day from that place. We're not only helping animals, but they are inspiring and offering us that strength to carry on, for not only for them, but for humanity as well.
So what love does, when you fall in love with an animal, that's it.
That's it.
Yep, you got to give. It's one of the things you talked about was falling on your knees.
Yes.
I'm going to a group this weekend from people around the world who have been doing activism. And it started by a woman called Dina Metzger. who does incredible activist work. She's a famous
Yeah.
writer. And she holds retreats at her place in Southern California. And what she did was one day she goes to Africa a lot, sees what's happening to the animals there, sees what's happening to the animals everywhere, and with all of it. And she said one day she just fell to her knees. Just like she fell to her knees in utter despair and cried and cried and cried and couldn't bear it. And then she said Spirit came to her and said she had to call this council, the one that I'm going to.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like she might be having
She's frozen.
technical difficulties. Well, we can wait for Susan to come back and finish that thought. Linda, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to continue on with, or
Certainly. I mean, you could turn me on and I'll just keep going for hours. This is what, this is my life. Well, yes, as she's saying, we fall down on our knees, but would you choose to be unconscious and not see and not feel? For we are the blessed ones, we are the blessed ones because we feel, because we see, because we know, and we're able to teach. We teach by demonstration. People don't learn because we preach. But, in light of this, what I tell people, and I work with many burned out activists, it's something that I do, and I'm being called to do it more. I'm doing actually individual coaching with people who are just finding it difficult to move on. And I only teach what I know and what I have learned. But what I ask people to do right now is, express, put out into the world your own unique gifts and talents. Put them to work. Do the right thing, not only for yourself, but your family and for the generations to come. And, we need to remember that every generation before us has had their issues. We find this devastating, and of course it is like nothing before. The previous generations of ordinary people fought hard for what we have today, our rights, our ability to speak our voice. Speak the voice in our heart and make a lot of noise, and don't be afraid to do it. And it's not easy, and not everyone will like you, but so what? You'll be supported and inspired by those who share your vision. My father's words ring in my ears. And what he used to say to me is, however difficult, Linda, however hard it is, however difficult it may be, doing the right thing really does matter. That's how we make the world a better place.
I got cut off in the middle of talking. Chelsea, you co-host again? Yes. Thank you, Linda, for carrying on while I was gone. So what I wanted to talk about was, so this woman in the middle of a retreat started feeling the despair, not Dina, in one of Dina's retreats. And she started singing a song that was so beautiful and piercing that Dina felt it was going to other realms. And somehow it went through to another realm where we might find answers that are beyond us.
Yes.
So the point of this retreat that I'm going to is for us to try and come empty and listen. Is there something larger than us that can speak to us about what can we do to stop this mass extinction? And I wanted to share that with you for two reasons. One is, you're not the only one, Linda. Of course you're not. You fell on your knees in despair.
That's right.
But you're courageous enough to say so. And this is what one woman is doing. You've done what you've done when you fall on your knees in despair. When she felt on her knees in despair, she decided to call this council. And we have no idea if it's going to work. We have no idea if it's going to be of any use at all.
Hmm.
I did bring it up to you, bringing it up to all of you now, because I will share with you what came out of it afterwards. So everyone's doing what they can in their own way. That wonderful little girl, I shouldn't say little, I think she's 15 or 16 now, Linda, Dina.
Are you speaking of the little girl Greta?
Yes.
One who, yes, yes.
So
I actually had some pictures of her. I was going to hold up, but I don't think we need to. I think everyone is quite.
you don't need to.
Yes.
So what I wanted to do then was open the conversation. So Linda and I have spoken a bit about how we see things, and open the conversation to all of you to converse all together and with us about your own feelings, about what you think you can do, about how we can support one another, whatever you'd like to share. So Chelsea, if you could unmute everyone.
Yes. All right. So I will, everyone will remain muted, but you will now have the opportunity or the option to unmute yourself. So go to the bottom left corner and there's a little microphone and you'll be able to press that to unmute yourself. We do ask that when you begin speaking, you introduce yourself and say where you're joining us from, and then just remaining mindful about the topic of conversation and staying on it, and then as well as with time, allowing everyone who wants to speak the opportunity to do so. So, all right. So yes, it is now open for discussion.
All courageous voices arise.
For anyone who's new, silent is okay, because it gives everyone a chance to try and think deeply and come from a
Yes.
place. So please feel free not to worry if there's a little bit of silence. Just tune in and speak when you're ready.
Hello, my name is Linda Tomlinson.
Hi, Linda.
Hi.
Hello, and I'm from just outside Philadelphia. Your words went right to my heart, both you, Susan, and Linda. I was a hospice nurse for 42 years. Always loved animals, though. And I decided after I retired that I was going to work with animals. I am a Reiki master instructor, and I started a little practice for the animals, and I lost my best friend, Kayla Journey, who was my heart, my golden retriever. And I kind of put everything away, and that was 3 years ago. And I'm thinking that maybe I need to get back for my little part.
Yes.
And this has really given me courage to maybe actually move forward. And I thank you both very much.
Thank you, Linda. That's so precious. And you just exude loving kindness and compassion.
Thank you.
You are already, you speak of I must get back, but you are already the embodiment of love and compassion, and it's how you're showing up every minute, every day, and where that leads you will be so beautiful, but it's already shining from you.
Thank you so much, Linda. Thank you.
I wanted to add to that, Linda Tomlinson, that I don't think it's fair to say your little part.
Exactly.
In one sense, all of our parts are little because of billions of us, but we never know the impact of what we're going to do and the juiciness and richness of it. And if we say a little part, it minimizes us, which I don't think is necessary. Your part may be enormous. You don't know. But time for other people to have any other thoughts about that or other things they want to say.
Hi, Susan. It's Beth in San Jose, California.
Hi.
Hi. I just want to talk about a synchronicity that came across my wavelength this morning. This is the vernal equinox. Spring is bursting in many places, maybe not so much in Driggs, Idaho yet.
Yes, it is. It's beautiful.
Awesome. But there was, I'm connected to Sandra Ingerman. She's a shaman. And
oh, yes.
She shared some information from Tracy Schulsinger, who I'm not aware of, but can I read you? It's just a couple paragraphs about planting peace gardens. Yeah. And it said, in early January, I gathered my monthly shamanic journeying circle, and we asked our guides what intentions or focus are in my highest good for 2019. I received several beautiful and exciting answers, and I would like to share one of them with you. They said, it is time to venture out into the world more. You need to involve yourself more with what is happening all over the globe and not avoid hearing about events because of how it affects you. When you hear about something that is happening in the world that pains you to hear, instead of retreating and avoiding it, go deeper and plant shamanic peace gardens. These gardens will help bring harmonious and beautiful life to the situation and to the people involved. As you are clearing away the debris over the earth, you are also clearing away the debris of the situation. As you dig a hole in the earth, you are digging deep into the situation to connect with it. As you plant a seed in the earth, you're inserting a different kind of energy into the situation, one that will help to change, overcome, and plant beauty and peace there. As you cover the garden with soil, you are grounding and anchoring the situation with this new energy. As you water the garden over and over again, you are continually nurturing and loving the people and the situation. And then she specifies ways to do this. But she said she was so relieved and she'd felt guilty about avoiding things and felt it was necessary for her self-care because it would affect her so emotionally. But, and she figured her own suffering wasn't helping anyone, but that it was better to try to spread joy, but that never felt quite right. She said, in effect, I was bypassing life and my feelings over and over again. Now with these peace gardens, the peace garden practice, I can engage in the world fully, protect myself by being in the energy of the peace gardens, and help to bring the energy of life, love, and beauty to the places and people in the world who greatly need it. So I will happily share that link with Chelsea, but I just thought it was really a straightforward way to help yourself and also plant those seeds, especially at this specific time of year.
Nice, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think that's my cue. You know, I think about this a lot, and probably more from an academic stance, because I study environmental justice and environmental sociology, and I find the more, you know, I keep digging into these topics, the more I am just overwhelmed at the realities of what is happening on our planet and how many of us are, you know, I think contributing to it, whether, you know, it's an act of greed, or if it's an act that we subconsciously don't realize, you know, we're doing to contribute to it. And it often sends me into, you know, a depression-like state of, wow, what can we really do in the time that we have to do it? And the thing that pulls me out, and it's not, you know, this like big realization, but it's these little moments of sharing beauty and time with life and other beings, and just realizing that if we don't try to protect and preserve and, you know, be a part of what we do have in this life, then we are just letting go of pure magic. And I certainly, you know, don't want to, you know, 10 years down the line say that I didn't do all that I could. And I think it's really daunting when we focus on the big issues and the systemic changes that need to happen. And I think it's necessary to do that. But I think it's really important to focus in on all the little things in your daily life that you do. Like Linda was saying, the embodiment, of love and compassion, and realizing how far that can go, even towards climate change. You affect one person or one being in a loving way, and that is energy and being put out into the world, which really is the solution that we all need. It's the solving this spiritual crises in order to solve this ecological one. So yeah, I don't know if that really gets at the topic at hand, but it is something that I think about a lot, and I'm often very overwhelmed. But I think there's too much love, too much beauty, and too much unknown still to not, give everything we have for all the creatures that we share this place with.
On a positive note related to what you said, in the last year only, perhaps, people have begun to be aware of plastics. I remember Chelsea and I writing something about plastic straws maybe a year ago, and it was new. And now it's suddenly everywhere. People all over the world taking their little actions, and I don't mean little in that same sense, but local actions. People in New Guinea getting together to take all the plastic out of their rivers. Trader Joe's, I think it was, just decided to stop all single-use plastics, and stops like 1 million pounds a year. I don't remember the statistics, but suddenly people are doing runs where they pick up plastic during their runs. It's suddenly become so aware that the plastic industry is going to have to do something about it too. And that's just one example. Is it too late? I don't know. It's too late for a lot of the animals who already died and eaten it. But we're making a shift, and it was really fast. As one example. We don't know. And just I want to add one other thing to what Chelsea said about how we can't give up on the other magic. And how could you give up on your dog or your cat or your mother or your child? How can you? You can't. And it's the same thing. It doesn't matter. We can't give up. And on the other hand is what you just said earlier about with that beautiful reading you gave about how do we do the self-care, because the despair is so great. That's where we have to support one another. And if any of the rest of you have ideas of how you support yourself, and this is more than a 1 hour and 1 night conversation.
Yes.
It could be continued among us. How do we help ourselves overcome the intense pain and despair and overwhelm, and then act anyway? That's really the theme of tonight.
Susan, I'd like to add that, in our culture, we don't want to think of feeling despair or feeling depressed. We think that that's abnormal. Well, I believe that that is not abnormal. I believe that if we look around today and we see what's happening in the world, not only with animals, but with humans, with just about everything. If you are not depressed, what's wrong with you? I mean, this is a normal human response to what is going on in the world. And we mustn't try to get rid of it. And we're all feeling it. And it's leaning in. It's saying, I'm a grown-up. I'm not a child. I am a grown-up now. Young girls need to grow up to be women. Young men need to stand up and say, I'm a man. And we need to take on these challenges. And it doesn't need to feel good. But when we work together, we lean into the issues, we are in a consciousness that allows us to go into a deeper place. I believe we need a spiritual path. It is the only thing that has kept me going and kept me strong. And working together, sharing our heartbreak, sharing our goals, sharing our missions, and just showing up. And every single one of us can Go into the quiet and listen, because we each have our role to play. None is greater, none is lesser. None is more important or less important.
Mm.
And it's showing up and listening. And we will be guided. You know, do not think you won't be guided. If you are coming from your heart space and you are listening to that small, still voice. Mahatma Gandhi, when asked what triumphed over the great nation of Britain, he said it was the still, small voice within. And that still, small voice is within each one of us and will guide us and give us strength to move forward in our unique way.
I'll just add real quick, Linda, there's a really lovely article by Joanna Macy called Working Through Environmental Despair. And it talks a lot about that, how we, you know, it's so common in our culture to identify depression for the personal reasons we get, but that the acknowledgement that we can all be, you know, in despair because of these larger things beyond us is okay, and it should be acknowledged and talked about on a larger scale, and that's where the healing starts. So I'll send that to everyone.
Absolutely, absolutely. And when we finish, I would just like to share a small prayer that I use every day, my prayer, and it possibly would be helpful. But I'm wondering if anyone out there listening would like to share something they're working on or hoping to put forth. It helps to verbalize. It helps to speak. Gives us more courage and more power to get themselves out there. If anyone needs to share that.
I wanted to share that many years ago, I worked with Joanna Macy in Despair and Empowerment. And we would have these weekends of just falling into the despair because it was a ritual act. I mean, we were just on the floor. And it was incredible because she is an incredible teacher, you know. And I also did Council of All Beings with her. But the fact of the matter is that there's this resilience that grows out of falling into how we really feel, you know, and the hope that it's kind of fiery hope really that comes out of it. When I look at Joanna Macy, I see that in her eyes, you know, her fiery dedication. And I see it in everybody else's eyes here too. But I think it's important to let that rise up when it does, and to trust that going through it, whenever it arises, brings you to a place of wholeness, you know, that you can trust that it'll hold you. And I think if you feel like you're doing it alone, that dissolves it. That when you fall into that connection of despair in a way and hope in the same breath, I think then you feel connected to every animal and every being a whole lot all over again. It's that isolation that gets a little, you know, difficult.
I think what Chelsea pointed out was really important, which is we tend to, if we're depressed, we tend to think it's us. You might go to a doctor for medication, and maybe it's us partly, but we're so tuned to one another that we pick up the depression in the air. I think we also pick up the despair in the air from the animals. I personally think a lot of animals suffer from PTSD, and it's in the air and we pick it up. So that's why it's so important, first of all, to understand it's not us. We're picking it up from elsewhere.
Yes.
But it's not, if we reverse it, we're now putting out into the air the positive. And we're so tuned to one another, you know, like the old story of the women living together, menstruating together. We're so tuned to one another on so many levels we don't even know that as we start doing something positive, other people around us pick, like standing in the light somehow. We attract other beings, we encourage other beings. It's so important to be positive for that very reason. Just being positive helps. And I just wanted to add a quick answer to a really good question, Linda, about what do we do for myself. I look outside. I go sit with a tree. I go feel the land. The earth is so much larger than us. There's just such healing there. And there have been other extinctions, and there may be more, but the earth is going to continue and life is going to continue. That larger perspective always helps me. Some people say all life will be extinguished. No, it won't.
No.
It's much larger than us. It's probably larger than the earth. And the suffering that we cause because of our human stuff. And Chelsea said greed. I think it's just being so self-involved that our brains were wired to be self-involved, because that's the way as biological beings we protect ourselves. And as Linda says, we need to develop our forebrains, the human part, the spiritual part, to override our sense of selfishness. One of the major things we can do, one is immediately, as I said earlier, the land is not a commodity. How can we change that? And it will immediately affect a lot of things. The other thing is to practice mindfulness, teach mindfulness, make sure it's in the schools. So, because the main thing that's happening is we are mindless. The greed is foolish. It doesn't give us happiness. It's just wiring. Gotta bake ourselves up the wire, up the ladder. It's just wiring that we can change, but we have to do it fast. We've got to do a spiritual revolution fast. Anyway, the earth is where I go. So thank you.
And that is your spiritual connection, as it is with me. But I think, His Holiness said, we need a plan to save the world, but none of the plans will work unless we meditate. In other words, our power, our strength, our courage, our resilience all come from that connection to spirit. And whether we tap in through nature or, through looking in our puppy's eyes or sitting in meditation, it is a deep connection, a reawakening to who we already are. It's that journey without distance to the goal that is right here in front of us. But we need to connect with the truth of who we are. Otherwise, the cultural conditioning, the insanity and the chaos is reinforced by the ego that says, oh yeah, you can seek your happiness in this cultural chaos. Well, we know that is false. So unless we get back to the truth of who we are through our spiritual practice, connecting with a tree, connecting with the birds, to get to that place of peace beyond the madness, that's where I go. I go to that peace beyond understanding, which for me I can just tap into by sitting with the birds or the geese or a tree.
And then we get sustenance.
And we remember that we're never alone. That's another insane egoic thought that we've been brainwashed into thinking, that we're alone. We're not. We're not alone.
I think kind of going off of that, knowing that we're not alone, realizing that climate change, it's felt among all life too. So while we always focus on how it affects us as humans, these are, all of these changes in the environment and the vibrations and energy in the world because of it are felt among all life. This is something every single being on earth is having to deal with. So not only are we not alone in our path to, make changes, positive changes, we're also, you know, all life is with us in that too. They want it too. And as humans, I think we maybe have a larger responsibility because we have a larger role in causing it. But that this is, you know, on the negative side, it affects all life. And on the positive side, it's a collaboration to stop it.
Yes.
Oh, go ahead.
No, sorry, finish.
Oh, I was just going to say that we're just a few minutes left. So whoever wanted to add in, we'd love to hear from you.
Marta, Mary, Molly.
Hi, I'm Marta, and
Hi.
I live in New York State, and spring is on the way here, and everybody that I talk with is just so happy and is feeling it and being aware of it and just appreciating. Today was very sunny, and it's encouraging to me to just see other people be really connected to the earth at this time, because everybody's so glad that winter is coming to an end. And I think people are more than they have been recently connecting to the beauty of the earth and the coming of spring. I just don't have all that much to say, except that I also gain my sustenance from being outside. I've had some issues with my left leg, which have made it very difficult for me to go out for walks, which I just love to do. I'll start walking and all of a sudden my leg just starts hurting and I have to turn around and come home. And that's really sad because I get so much from just being outside and walking down my road and hearing the birds. And so I think I'm on the way to healing it. But even if I'm just in my house, sometimes my cat will just come and cry to me, and she just wants to be paid attention to and petted. And just spending time with her and petting her and feeling her purr, and it's just one of those little things that isn't really so little.
Yes.
Yeah, you were saying that, Linda. And it's another way of connecting to the universe, because we're all one. So, you know, whether I'm outside and hearing the birds or just petting my cat while she lies in the sun, is soaking up the heat from the sun and getting petted, it's all part of what connects us and makes this world a magical place. I also fight just extreme depression, what I see happening, waste on an incredible level. I feel pretty helpless to stop so many of the things that I see going on, but I just try to be a light and do what I can do and hope for the best. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
I think you're right, Marta, about more and more people are seeing the beauty. As it's being threatened, more and more people are tuning in. And we'll see how it ends. But I think a lot of people, the movements around the world, people like little Greta Thunberg, are just enormous. And we need to put our energy towards that rather than allowing depression. And by allowing, I don't mean it's like something we do deliberately, but put our energy towards supporting that.
Yes. It's reawakening that fire inside us.
Yeah.
We can feel the despair, but then that fire can arise within us. And when we listen, when we tune in those quiet moments, inspired by that joyous love from your little cat, that is huge. That is fuel for that fire. And that fire gets bigger and bigger, because remember people, that the ones out there doing the dirty deeds, oh my, they're really putting it out there. They are good to go. They are on fire. What we need to do is rise to that occasion. Compassion and fiery love, and get out there and be passionate, be committed, and do our work. And it's not small. It is not small. And you will rise up and you will do what you have been called to do from the depths of your heart, and you will succeed.
It's for life that we're fighting.
That's exactly right.
I don't know if you want to say your prayer, Linda, or not. If you wanted to do that near the end.
Well, I thought, I really believe, and I feel this with every fiber of my being, after speaking to all of you, that we need to, in compassion and great love, remember we are one. Remember we are inspired to do the work of good and fight for what is right. And I would just like to read my little prayer that inspires me to keep going, no matter what else is going on.
Could I just please give a couple comments of positive things that have happened in Michigan?
Sure, go ahead.
Sure, yes.
I'm so sorry with the time zone change and things going on that I'm late joining in and missed, and so I have to catch it on the recording. But I'm sitting here with a newspaper article, and it says Roper students get in on Fridays for Future. The students at lunchtime last Friday broke loose out of the school. They had made signs and they marched around protesting that, and joining in with joined in with the 16-year-old Swedish student Greta Thunberg, who protested in front of the Swedish Parliament building every school for 3 weeks to show her disappointment in the government's lack of action to address climate change. And so on their own, this group of students in the upper school of one of our schools here in Bloomfield Hills, Birmingham, actually, Michigan, made signs and ran outside and protested. And the administration had no objection to the kids. They've got the right to do that. Another thing that happened also is one of the utilities company came in, and they were so rampantly chopping down trees, people made enough noise that it also hit the front page of the paper. And it's maybe the second time I've seen people getting together and feeling very comfortable to make themselves known, not sitting back and just letting it happen. So yes, people are hearing and feeling and wanting to make a difference. Let's go.
Yes.
A great way to end tonight.
Beautiful. And speak that voice in our hearts and not be afraid to make a lot of noise. May I read my little poem?
Yes.
Oh.
Read your little poem.
Okay, if we might close our eyes and feel into it. O great Spirit, to better serve the animals and all beings, in humble prayer I ask, show me what I need to see. Teach me what I need to learn. Show me truth. Ignite my heart and transform my being so that I may serve as a vehicle through which your voice flows out to the world, helping those who have no voice. Thank you.
And at the end of that, I would say what Jean just said. Let's go.
Let's go and kick ass.
Yeah!
You want to end it, Chelsea?
Yeah, thank you all so much. This is, for a topic that could be very disheartening, it really just feels empowering. And so thank you all for sharing in that and getting inspired. And yeah, I'm excited to see what we all do with this energy. So thank you for being here tonight. We will post the recording to our website. The best way to stay in touch is through our newsletter if you aren't registered for that already. And I will send out a thank you certainly within a week or so with the material we've covered today. And the next conversation will be the third Wednesday in April, which is April 17th, again at 6 p.m. So thank you all, and we hope to see you again.
Conservation Conversations are a production of the Earthfire Institute, a wildlife sanctuary and rehabilitation center whose mission is to change how people see and therefore treat wildlife and nature. Join us as we work toward becoming a committed and supportive community of all beings. Earthfire depends on your donations to continue these conversations. You can donate at our website, www.earthfireinstitute.org. The soundscapes are by Wild Sanctuary Presents, Bernie Krause and Philip Arberg. Thank you for listening. Please join us for these monthly conversations.